G'day and welcome back to Agency Highway. I'm your host, James Rose, and today we are talking with Hana. You know what? I just realized I didn't ask for a pronunciation of your last name, so I'm just going to try. Hana, is it? I've got to be Kane instead of Khan. No? How do I pronounce your name?
That's my maiden name, so that'd be Kane, right?
Kane?
So
it is Kane. I was like, Kane. No, after Hana, I can't have like a classic like Kane.
Yeah. That's my maiden name. And so I've been married for 5 years. We actually just celebrated our 5th year anniversary.
Wow.
But my married last name is Latonic. So Hana Kane Latonic.
Latonic. Oh, wow. Well, I clearly had a typo in my notes.
No worries.
I'm so glad I asked. But yeah, like
I get it all the time.
Yeah, and I bet you get called Hannah all the time as well, yeah?
Yeah, I get called Hannah Latnick, and I'm like way off. So
I saw by this point in your life, you're probably like, whatever.
Exactly.
Well, my name is James Rose. No one screws that up. Literally no one.
It's quite the privilege.
Yeah. It's such a white, like English name too. Anyway, boring as hell. There's like 1,000 of me in the world. I have zero hope of ever ranking for my name or for my nickname, Jimmy Rose. Because there's many of us. Anyway, way off topic.
Let's bring it back.
Yeah. So, all right. Hana founded Invent with Code, and you help freelancers or freelance developers and digital agencies maximize earning potential. So that's good. And that's pretty much the topic of today, right? You show people how to double their revenue in the next 90 days. So we're going to talk about a 90-day lead generation formula.
Yep.
And obviously, I mean, I don't really need to explain why this is a good thing. But I do love your tagline that you want to save people time. So you want people to have more time, money, and freedom to live life on their own terms.
Because who wouldn't want that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much the only reason I'm in business. So no, I like helping people too. That's why I have a podcast. So that's actually one of the best things is when you get like little bits of feedback and people are like, oh my God, such and such helped me so much. We've changed our business because of something I heard on the podcast, which is what someone sent me the other day. And I was just like, oh my, those feels.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it all worth it, right?
Absolutely. Okay, but before I go and butcher what you do, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself and let me know what the best thing that's happened to you in the last 12 months.
Sure. So essentially what I do is I help propel web design and development businesses to new heights over the next 90 days, even if they've tried everything else and they're just not seeing the results they desire. And essentially, at the end of the day, businesses want to see more leads and more customers to generate more sales. And so that's what I help them achieve. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And the best thing that's happened to me over, I guess, the past year. So from a business perspective, I was a webinar guest with a partner, and this has never happened before. And so it was pretty awesome when it did, where after doing that webinar, I tripled my email list overnight.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is actually happening. And to date, that partnership has brought in approximately 122 clients so far, and reliably it brings in about 3 to 5 new clients each month. And so that's been awesome. So I would say the best advice to take away from that awesome story is that the fastest way to grow your business is through strategic partnerships, right? So if you could think of 10 people that you could partner with, write their names down, reach out to them, get coffee with them. And even if you just land one of those partnerships, it's going to just have a great impact on your business.
You know what a really bloody awesome way to start partnerships is?
Podcast.
Doing it right now. Yeah. A podcast. And I mean, this is just absolutely killer. And I've been reading a lot lately. Again, this is a bit off topic, but well, not really. Because it's a lead generation thing as well. I've seen God, who was it? I think it's Agency Management Institute, which is Drew McClellan. think his name is, but he he's had like a series of posts about agencies starting podcasts for lead gen and relationship development, because you could have your clients on, and you can do really helpful stuff. So if you've thought about starting a podcast for your agency, it's a pretty legitimate thing to do, and it really, honestly, there's not that much work to do, because I've got my thing down to an absolute streamlined process now. If you're interested in that, just shoot me a line. You'll be able to get in contact with me through the website, agencyhighway.com. And I can show you what to do. Anyway, sidetracking.
Well, actually, I just want to piggyback on that, is that
Sure.
I actually do plan on doing a podcast, if not by the end of the year in 2019, because it is a great customer acquisition channel. And so I will definitely hit you up to learn more about your process and streamlining your podcast. So
if you don't want to reach out to me, it's if you go to jimmyrose.me, that's my personal site, and that's where, because it didn't really belong on Content Snare or Agency Highway, so I just threw up the post there, and I talk about my process, the tools I use, the microphone I use, like everything, because I've read so many freaking guides, from all these like apparent gurus on podcasting, and there was just so much crap in there. Well, they were old, like things have changed a lot.
outdated, yeah.
Yeah, so I found all like the best WordPress plugins and podcast hosting and everything to just make my process as fast as possible, because I hate doing unnecessary work. Anyway, let's talk about lead gen, because that's what we're here to do. You talk about doubling people's business in 90 days. So I guess maybe it might help to start just a little bit on how you got into this, like where you started.
Sure. So I actually started out as an engineer, just learning different programming languages. Actually, I would say it probably all started back in high school when I first learned web design and web development, just designing and developing pages. And then once I graduated from college, then started engineering different software solutions, from web applications down to even lower level programming. But I really enjoy the web application layer and just building websites and just putting yourself out there, right? And so through that, I then led a couple startups, teaching kids how to code and teaching them web design and development, and just helping startups pretty much grow, right, through my experiences. And so now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I've done this for myself, I've done this for others. Now I just want to have a wider impact and really just help digital agencies, freelance businesses to just, as I say, maximize their earning potential and just have the greatest impact that they can have through their products and services.
Awesome. That's a cool story, actually. Like when you said engineer, my ears went like, boop, because I was like, because that's where I started too, but more in like industrial programming, in like ladder logic and function block diagram and all these things that some programmers have never heard of. Anyway, okay. So where should we start here? Do you think, like, what's the best place to start?
Well, I think at the core of it is that in order to increase your sales, it just comes down to two, I would say, key measures, right? So your total sales is the product of two things, which is your number of customers multiplied by your average spend per customer, right? And so essentially, as you adjust those two levers, if you say double your number of customers, you end up doubling your sales, or if you double the average spend per customer, then you result in doubled sales. And so depending upon how a business wants to strategically grow, it's just a matter of identifying which lever to pull, as well as how to go about achieving that increased metric, right? So when it comes to number of customers, then you want to think about, okay, how can I generate more high converting leads? Because if you're trying to attract everyone, which is one common mistake that businesses make, is that they try to sell everything to everyone. Yeah. But when you do that, you end up selling nothing to no one. So if you can attract the right prospect, not only is that going to increase your conversions because you're able to sell the right thing to the right person at the right time.
Yeah, and specialization has come up quite a few times on this podcast. Like we had, in fact, I think one went live today. So from Jason Resnick, and that'll give you guys an idea of how far ahead I am in interviews right now. Because, I mean, it's the 11th of October. We're recording this, and this is probably going to come out in like 9 weeks or something. I think I'm ahead at the moment. So I like being ahead. I'm about to go away, so it's good to have that content sorted for the next sort of 2 and a bit months. But Troy Dean has spoken about it. So yeah, I think I'll link both of those episodes up. And
that'd be great.
But yeah, because selling anything to anyone is there's a lot of traps there, right? So you can be doing too much work because you're trying to do Google ads and Facebook ads and whatever, or, even lots of parts in one website. Like if you do lots of different types of websites, you got to learn constantly, right? Whereas if you sort of specialize in something, then you can charge more because you're an expert, that industry. And anyway, you should be talking about this, not me.
No worries. Yeah. So essentially it's like, okay, people think, all right, well, all I have to do is attract more customers, and they kind of go straight to tactics of, well, okay, I need to start doing Facebook and LinkedIn and Google AdWords. And it's like, there's actually a few things you need to have in place even before you start attracting or generating traffic, right? So the first thing that I recommend is that you build a trusted authority platform. And what that enables you to do is that you can position yourself as a true leader in your niche or in your industry. It'll allow you to create not only authority, but credibility, and most importantly, trust with your audience, with your clients. But also another added benefit of having a trusted authority platform is that you can attract higher paying clients and generate new business, right? And so how do you establish this trusted authority platform? Well, first and foremost, you want to set up your website, right? That's going to be your core platform. And then reaching out to, say, 1 or 2 outposts where you can use that to send traffic to your website. So for example, what I do is not only do I have my website as a trusted platform, but I also utilize LinkedIn and Facebook. Those are the 2, I would say, platforms that I'm utilizing to establish my authority and credibility, right? And so on my website, on LinkedIn, whether it's via my profile, whether it's via the LinkedIn groups, as well as with Facebook, on my Facebook page and Facebook groups, on my news feed, across these 3 platforms, I'm providing engaging content that helps, inspires, and transforms my audience, right? And so essentially,
just quickly, are these other people's groups you are in, or are you creating your own group to create yourself? I had this kind of vision for a second there where it was like you're creating groups for, let's go with the classic niche of a dentist. Are you creating a group full of dentists, or are you engaging in other people's places?
So both, right? Okay. So essentially, I first start out creating my own group.
Okay.
But in that way, I can use that as a way to attract or drive people into, say, a funnel, right? Mm-hmm. A sales funnel. And I'll get to that part in a second. Sure. But also by utilizing other Facebook groups, not in the way of stealing customers or clients, right? But it's more of helping people in those groups, answering their questions, even, working with, say, the admin or moderator. But essentially you're building relationships in these groups because then they see you as a go-to person, right?
Yeah, and I can definitely back this up. That's the reason I'm jumping in here, because I absolutely want to let people know that this is a solid strategy, because this is how we built Content Snare, right? And our Facebook group. I didn't do the link. I started doing the LinkedIn thing, but I dropped it because it was too much. But we created a Facebook group, and I had a list of Facebook groups that I would go in and check and literally scroll down questions and finds things that I could answer, or, you know, I'd search through and try and find things. Obviously not posting on old stuff because that makes you a douchebag. If you're trying to dig up old threads, but yeah, like going in other people's groups or like sharing relevant content. Doesn't have to be yours. You know, it's nice if it is, but you got to tread a fine line for spam.
Yeah, self-promotion and whatnot. Yeah.
But you know what? I developed relationships with people that owned these other groups as well, right? And would clear,
Exactly.
you know, being like, is it okay if I share this thing, you know? So yeah, that's definitely a good strategy.
Yeah, because essentially what you're doing is that by adding value to the community, whether it's, you know, writing engaging content on your website or sharing other people's contents in these groups or on your profile or a page, people will recognize that you're not only very helpful, but that you're also very knowledgeable and that you have the experience to solve their problem, right? And so once you're seen as that trusted authority, then you're in a position to start, I would say, sending more directed traffic to either a landing page or your website. So for example, once you have your platform in place, you start building a pipeline of targeted potential clients. And what that essentially entails is that, and again, this is going to position you to attract the right prospect, is that say you, it's like three components, right? You have your landing page that you're going to send traffic to. And on that landing page, you're going to make the ask for them to schedule a call. And I've found that depending upon the pricing of your services, especially if you sell a premium service, you have a higher conversion by booking a call with them versus trying to, say, pitch on a webinar or just flat out in an email, hey, buy my like $5,000 service. But essentially what I want them to do is to schedule a call. And in the process of scheduling a call, I actually have them fill out an application. And it could be like a questionnaire or a survey, but essentially I'm evaluating or qualifying whether or not this is someone that is a good fit. And if they meet that criteria, then essentially I will conduct that call with that person, right?
Yep.
And so if they don't meet that criteria, then I don't have to waste my time to figure out at the end of the day, they can't afford my services or they're just not a good fit.
Totally. And you know what? I've heard so many people talk about this, not so many, like a few very smart people talking about this application form process, like James Shremko from the Superfast Business podcast and the guys at the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, that's Joe and Matt. I forget their last names, Fia Wolf, I think. But they're two very good podcasts that cover a lot of different business things. And these guys are well known, right? They're the real deal. And I've heard both of them talk about using application as the first step in the sales process because it just repositions everything, you know, like, exactly. And allows you to filter like you talked about there.
Oh yeah, it filters out a lot. I would say it's definitely saved me a lot of time and eliminated frustrations and headaches. But if you think about, like, the analogy is like, you know, when you go to see the doctor, right, they have you fill out a questionnaire or a survey to kind of help qualify what's going on, as well as to help diagnose the problem, right? And if you're able to be seen as, we'll say, a doctor, someone that can diagnose and prescribe versus someone that's salesy, right, just buy my product, then you're going to end up with higher conversions because you're going to be working with people that are a best fit for your product and service. So if you're not using an application process or even making that initial ask to book a call, definitely try it in your business. And if you get results, you know, share it back with us with Content Snare and just see how it works out in your business.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do something like that for Content Snare, but to me, it's a little bit douchey. Like, it's a software product. There's no like, um, it's not like I can have a wait list or something, or like, anyone can sign up and use it. That said, we definitely need to be better at qualification because we have quite a lot of people that come in and think about it like a magic bullet or something and aren't prepared to put in the time to set it up. Like most process things, it takes time to set up, and they come in and they never take the time, which means they send bad requests to their clients. If it's just like a bunch of fields or whatever, and no help for their clients, and they go, oh, it doesn't work, and they leave, right? And I'm like, come on, you just need to spend a bit of time. And so part of me is almost like I should have a thing that's like, are you willing to put in the time?
Well, I guess like one thing that works is a different form of like an application survey or questionnaire is a quiz, right? If you have a quiz up front, it's not too as intimidating or as formal, but you can ask those key questions of, how much time would you be able to dedicate in a week, right? Like, do you have 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 5 hours, and so on? And that'll give you a better idea of the type of customer or client that you're going to be engaging with, right? Because if they don't have the time of day, then it's probably not going to work out. But if they do, then yeah.
I'm taking a note of that. Like, I'm like are you ready for Content Snare?
Exactly. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't make that a barrier for everyone though, because we have bigger clients, like big agencies that just hear about it or Google something about getting content, and they're like, I want to try this, so I don't want to make them jump through a bunch of hoops. But having that on the homepage, that's really good. Just on this quickly too, you were talking about applications and stuff, and I just wanted to mention my experience here because we kind of screwed up when we were doing the agency thing, and we had a wait list. I remember all these like smart marketers talking about wait lists for their communities or their products, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that for a website. And I think we actually turned quite a few people off because they were like, oh, I don't know how long it will be till I get my website or whatever. In hindsight, it's very obvious that we shouldn't have done that, but the application form, it has that same level of, I guess, scarcity or whatever. Like, it makes you seem quite professional, and and that you're not going to work with everyone, and that you're obviously in demand if you can have an application process. But at the same time, there's none of that negativity of having to wait that you do with a wait list. So I like it.
And it definitely turns the table, because usually it's the client or say the prospect is evaluating whether or not you're good enough for them. But with the application or the qualification process, you turn the tables and you're really asking that prospect, are you, good enough or the right fit for us? Right. And so it really puts, I would say, the ball in your court versus being at the mercy of your process.
Yeah,
prospect.
For sure. All right. So what's next then?
Right. So once you start building that targeted pipeline of clients, right, now you're in a position to start generating traffic. And this could be done in a few ways, as well as just what I call a traffic approach versus a messaging approach. And so if you're taking the traffic approach where you can, set up Facebook ads, for example, this is what I'll just describe what I'm using in my business right now to go through this process. So using Facebook ads, Google AdWords, and even webinars to send traffic to my landing page. And then on that landing page, it has the ask to schedule a call, fill out the application. And then if they qualify, we conduct the call. But then what I've also found useful is the messaging approach, right? So the traffic approach are kind of, you have the shotgun rifle effect, right? Where the traffic approach, you're kind of just shooting everything out. It's still kind of targeted, but you're casting a wider net. Whereas with the messaging approach, we'll call that like the shotgun effect, where it's very narrow and targeted. So
the rifle, you mean?
Oh, yeah. The rifle.
Or unless you've got a shotgun with a slug in it, which is a thing. Yes, I know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what. And so the messaging approach, you're going to be very precise and targeted in which, like, for example, I'll use Facebook Messenger or the Facebook Messenger, where I will reach out to people one-on-one, and not only building that relationship with them, but eventually that'll lead to, hey, let's jump on the phone, learn more about each other, and see how we can help each other's businesses. Do the same thing on LinkedIn, because that's my second main authority platform, is again using LinkedIn Messenger, of reaching out to people one-on-one, building that relationship, and then again trying to get them to book a call. And then lastly, for the messaging approach, is via email. Your email list is critical to your business, and so if you're able to segment your email list properly, then you can use very specific and direct messaging via your email to your subscribers to get them to schedule a call. They fill out the application, you conduct the call. So the traffic approach, as well as the messaging approach. So I say the traffic approach is like one-to-many, whereas the messaging approach is one-to-one. But they all converge to either a landing page or scheduling a call, so that I can then begin the closing process. Right.
Yeah, nice. So with the traffic approach, you mentioned Google ads and Facebook ads, and I don't know many people that have really made that work for agency stuff, or maybe they're just not doing it right. So do you have any like tips there? Like, just because the cost per click is so high in that space, right?
Yeah. So I would say, I do use, when it comes to Facebook ads versus Google AdWords, I do use Facebook ads more often. Probably it's like an 80-20, just because Google AdWords just has the most expensive cost per click. And so with Facebook ads, what I would recommend is not only being as specific as possible, right? So for example, you want to not only identify the niche that you're in, so let's just say web development, right? And then having a second tiered, I think they're called attributes, where essentially I want to say target businesses that are related to web development and say do SEO, right?
Right.
And with that, it's going to narrow down your audience.
So like getting a cross section, and
right, because usually people just do one level of, okay, just make sure they're interested in web development. But that's not specific enough.
This is almost like a whole other topic, because I could talk about this for a while. I've learned a bit about this cross-sectional stuff where, like being able to say this and this and this to really narrow it down. Like you could say people who are into dentists and in my city and our Facebook page admins, because they're probably going to be more likely to be a business owner in that case, and whatever, to really dial in that audience.
Yeah, I try not to go beyond 3. But I find the sweet spot is to no more than 3. But also,
it depends on the reach, right? On the audience size and the industry you're in, because it does give you that little gauge on the side about how big the audience is and how tight or broad it is.
Exactly. You don't want to be in the red where it's, or on the opposite end. But not only that, you definitely want to make sure you're using the retargeting pixel on your website, right? And so for me, what I do is I try to not only retarget the people that have visited my website, but have, say, engaged with my ads, or I definitely upload my business email list up to Facebook. And really, I'm just trying to target my subscribers, as well as those who have visited my webpage. So the only time that I'm doing, I'll just say cold Facebook ads, is when I'm trying to either have them sign up for a lead magnet or a webinar.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the webinar approach, because like I think you'd have quite a hard time marketing to a cold person, like someone. And but if you don't know what that means, it's like someone who's never heard of you before. They just saw your ad, they click through. They're probably unlikely to book a call with you. But if you have a webinar about how dentists can add 4 bookings per week or something, very specific to that market, you might have a lot more success in getting them to sign up for that. And then obviously you would have them on your email list and you can sell them later. So yeah, webinars seems like a really good choice for that kind of thing if you have a niche.
Yeah. As well as if you want to take the lead magnet approach, which definitely has a lower cost per click compared to like doing webinar conversions, are checklists. Any sort of like checklist or audit, business owners eat that up like hotcakes, right? But for the most part, in doing my Facebook ads, I'm just retargeting people that I at least have a relationship with, right? So someone that's visited my website or is on my email list.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And so essentially that's the main, I would say the key steps, right? So you've built out your trusted authority platform. You start laying in the elements to build a pipeline of your targeted potential clients. Then you're driving traffic, or I would say you're driving visitors, whether through the traffic approach or through the messaging approach. Once they book that call, you review their application to make sure that they meet your criteria. And then once you are on the call and you're conducting it, right, that gives you the opportunity to understand their pain and frustrations. You can help diagnose the problem, again, that whole doctor analogy, and then prescribe a solution that is unique to their business situation.
Absolutely. So is this just, I was just thinking, like, do you teach all of this? Is this what your course is? Is like this messaging, like building your platforms, the messaging component, etc.?
Yeah. So for the one course that I just recently put together to help freelance developer and designers is essentially the whole end-to-end system.
Right.
So going from, not only trying to attract anyone, but who's your client avatar, who's the right prospect to,
of course,
to attract. And then it goes through this process of how to set up your platform, how to target potential clients, the funnel that you need, as well as the different ways to generate more sales and double your revenue.
Yeah. I was just actually something that you just jogged my mind from there is the double your revenue thing. I was thinking at the beginning, because you were saying you can double how much you charge people or double how many leads you get. But it's like that classic compound effect, right? So what's the square root of 2, 1.4 or something? So if you times both by 1, you only need 40% increase in both of those to double your revenue overall. I believe that maths checks out.
Yeah. So actually, I did the math on it, right? So if you think about, right, going back to those 2 measures of increasing your number of customers as well as your number of the average spend per customer, definitely if you have a increase of 50%, then in each of those, then you definitely double your revenue, right? So if I have 1,000 customers and they have an average spend of $1,000, that's $1 million right there. But if I increase both by 50%, so now I have 1,500 customers and they each spend $1,500, then I think that comes out to about 2.25 million, right? So there. So if you do at least 40%, but it's definitely easier to remember, okay, just 50%, right in smack down.
Yeah, true. It's just, it's
double
just
your
cool
revenue.
how, and if you increase your conversion rate from leads to customers as well, and it all compounds on each other. What we didn't really dig into there, what I want to cover is messaging, because I know this, I guarantee there's people listening going like, oh, I don't want to do outreach, or like that's spam or something, So I want to squash that a little bit, because I know there's bad ways to do messaging and there's good ways to do messaging. So I'd like to hear a little bit about what you teach, I guess, here, or what you recommend.
Sure. Well, the first thing you definitely don't want to do is say, hi, buy my product.
Really? I thought that would work.
Or even, leading with what you do and what you think you can do for them and what you think they need. And so I just take a very personable, so if I'm doing the messaging approach, right, I take a very personal approach where essentially I will ask the person a question, right? So for example, I'll just do this on the fly, right? So I'll ask you, James, so can you give like, hey, I'm writing an article, and can you give a tip or two about the best way that you attract new clients, right? And by presenting a question along with showing how I can add value to this person, in which, like, if I'm taking the article approach, then I'm going to give that person exposure. I'm going to, help build their reputation and their authority, but I haven't asked for anything yet, right? And so I'm just saying, hey, I'm writing this article. I'd love to include you. Do you have a tip or two? And then based on their response, pretty much I'll gauge it of how to follow up with that person, right? So I'm trying to understand more of what they do. And the way that they answer the question, it'll also hint at one of their pain or frustrations, right? So like, for example, I had one person say, hey, you know what? I really need help in this area, but one thing that has worked for me is X, right? So now I know, okay, I didn't even ask this person, do you have trouble with clients? But just by asking a very simple question, people will tell you more than what you expect. And through that, I can then start building a relationship, either sharing them resources related to that, or sharing an exchange a tip of mine. And then eventually that will lead to, hey, you know what? I've had a great time chatting with you. Love to learn more about your business. Let's talk on the phone.
This is awesome. Like, that's an approach I've not heard. Like, I've heard like something like this talked about, like getting, we could create a blog post of people in our space, like other people that serve agencies, to get Content Snare promoted, right? Because then they're likely to share that post out. Like, I've heard that before. This is like a little twist on this, where you're getting your audience to contribute to something. So you can get content out of this as well for your site. Exactly. Obviously the prerequisite to this is knowing your client, because you can't don't want to reach out to everyone. But if you could have a post about like top 10 marketing tips from successful dentists or something, and in the process, you've also landed a few clients out of it just by asking people if they want to contribute, like that. Oh, that's epic. I really like this.
Yeah, it's definitely, simple and subtle, yet very powerful.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm trying to think how I can use this. I'm just like I feel like a thief on this call. I'm just like, I'm so selfish.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what my podcast apparently is just ask people for advice and then steal it and implement it. Yes.
There you go. And then you just give credit back, right? And
absolutely.
then back to the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like as a framework of, let's say you don't like writing articles. The whole point is that you are first providing value to your prospect before you make any ask, right? So whether that's, hey, I'd love to have you as a guest on my podcast, or I'd love to bring you in as a webinar guest, anything to make that person look good, right? If you can make them look good, then it's easier to build a relationship with that person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then eventually it leads to, a call, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. You know what? That making people look good is key as well, right? Like, it's on my actual weekly to-do list to be like, look at who I've spoken to recently, or like partners and stuff, and being like, who could I make look awesome this week? Like, are they launching something? Have they put up a new blog post or something? So I can be like, oh, guys, check this out. So it's like, that is super powerful when people see your like their stuff getting shared or whatever, right?
Right. Because I mean, it's validation
Yeah.
for what they do. And I would say, I mean, isn't your weekly newsletter that makes people look good every week, right?
Yeah, and
Because you're just
that's
sharing their.
usually one of the ways, right? Like that's actually one of the ways I make people look good is because I have a lot of people's feeds in there that I pick out stuff from, and I will intentionally try and pick out certain people's information. If well, it's obviously got to pass the "is this awesome" test that I try for everything that goes in there.
Right.
But yeah, it's and if you want that, by the way, it's at contentsnare.com/weekly, just a weekly newsletter that. Oh, I was so blown away when we started talking and you were like, oh yeah, I'm on your newsletter. I was like, wait, no way. And I looked up your email and you'd subscribed like 12 months ago or something. I was like, get out of town.
Yeah, I was just, trying to stay on top of things that are happening in the industry and just trying to stay current.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, web design newsletters and,
No way.
Content Snare came up and I was like,
That's
all
cool.
right, subscribe. So
Awesome. That's so
yeah,
cool. It came up like that. But I mean, that's one of those things like the podcast that when people actually take the time to respond and say stuff like, I've unsubscribed from every newsletter except yours. And, like, holy crap. Like that's like some really good feedback.
yeah, I'm actually one of those people. I subscribe to very few newsletters and yours is amongst my like top 10. So
Yay. Thank you. All right. Well, I think we can probably start wrapping that up because there's so much stuff here. Like even I've got a bunch of to-dos out of this, and I'm sure other people listening do as well. And we don't want to like explode their brains too much or make their
it's the fire hose effect.
right. Yeah, drinking from a fire hose. I love that analogy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we've kind of done that already. So I think we should let people know where they can go to actually take their time and have you teach them this. Where would you like to recommend people go?
Yeah, so definitely check out my website, inventwithcode.com. You can reach out to me via email. That's hana@inventwithcode.com. So that's HAH, and is in November A at inventwithcode.com. And I would love to, learn more about, people's businesses, how I can help. And yeah, hit me up
For sure.
those two ways.
So that was Invent, INVENT, just in case that's not coming through clear on the audio, inventwithcode.com. But just the last few questions. So what would you go back and tell mini Hana just starting out on this journey, agency life?
I would say my recommendation to mini Hana would be to don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle.
Oh, massive. That's huge. Yeah.
Because it's very easy to get distracted by what other people are doing. And it might seem like their success happened overnight, but a lot has gone into the making, right? And so I would say remain focused on your journey, march to the beat of your own drum, and just know that it's going to work out, right? So don't give up and just stay focused.
Nice. Yeah. And that's huge. Like everyone's pretty bad. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are very bad at comparing themselves to other people, like even with Content Snare, like I see other SaaS companies that are where I want to be. And I'm like, oh, they're there already. And it's like, we've been out a year, dude, like chill.
Right.
So yeah, like that's good stuff. What's your favorite piece of technology right now?
Oh, Zapier.
Yes.
As they say, right? Zapier makes me happier. I love Zapier just because I try to automate as much as possible. And, being an engineer, being a developer, I just love automations and how I can make things easier and faster. And so it just saves me a lot of time. And so at
So
the end of the
much.
day, it makes my life easier. So Zapier for the win.
I'm actually in the process of writing out my outline for a Zapier course. I've done most of the outline. I just need to sort of sit on it and think because I want to teach people about it because I talk about some automations and people are like, wait, you can do that? Or like, how do you do that kind of thing? I didn't know Zapier was capable. And when you have that developer mind, I guess, especially like, and you want to automate everything, especially because I came from automation engineering, I like, I think I might do a lot more with it than most business owners. So I really want to show people what they can do, because it saves so much freaking time. Some of the things you can set up, like for example, all like when this podcast goes live, I literally do nothing. But it pulls out the featured image, and puts that on Instagram with some hashtags, and it's sharing it in my Facebook group and on my LinkedIn, and like all with different text as well. Like I can rotate different bits of text. Like it's, yeah, so powerful. Anyway, again, that's like a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
All right. Let's wrap that up. So thanks for joining me, Hannah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and yeah, had a blast.
It's been awesome. This has been one of the longer episodes too, because I think there's just so much stuff we could keep talking about. But if you want to find out more, go to inventwithcode.com. Did you have something else you wanted to send people to, like a lead magnet?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, I have a lead magnet it's a checklist of, how to double your business, right? So it's 50 plus ways to double your business. So you can go to inventwithcode.com/DYB, which is short for double your business.
Nice. Inventwithcode.com/DYB, which I will put in the notes. And I just realized how funny it is to call something a lead magnet when we're telling people to go and sign up. That is my bad. I'm sorry. But look, I think we all know what that stuff really is. No one's that silly. I'm very happy to sacrifice my email to get something that's valuable, right? And especially if I am going to get other awesome stuff after I sign up. Yeah. Anyway, let's wrap it up there. Man, I just looking at my notes here and how much stuff that I want to do out of this episode.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. Alrighty. Again, thanks for joining me, Hannah.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for listening.